Hello, everybody. Welcome back to May in Motorsports. I am Jake, and I want to wish you guys all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. I hope you guys are safe and spending time with your family. Today's topic of discussion, the playoff format. As we all know, NASCAR, since 2004 now, has run some sort of postseason. It started with the 10-man chase back in 2004. Top 10 drivers in points make the postseason. Final 10 races, best of those 10 races wins the championship. 2014, we then started the elimination style bracket when I became a fan in 2014. Round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, round of 4. And then they modified it in 2017 to add playoff points. As we all know, NASCAR is still figuring out what points format they're going to go with next year. And there are a few options on the table. We have full season points, which most people want. I want full season points. Like, it's the most legitimate way to crown a champion. In my eyes, Formula One does something like that. IndyCar, basically every other motorsport. And notice how Formula One and IndyCar are becoming a lot more popular. NASCAR with playoffs has been tanking because it's just illegitimate. A 10-man chase is back in the question, which is what I want to talk about today. I personally think, hear me out, I think a 10-man chase would be ideal in today's world. I would love full season points, but I think it would be a perfect blend between being somewhat legitimate, relatively legitimate, and having a little bit of like that playoff, like postseason aspect. From 2004 to 2013, when they ran the original rendition of the chase, it had about a 50% accuracy rate of crowning the actual true champion across the entire season from race 1 to race 36. 2005, Tony Stewart would have won either way. 2006, Jimmy Johnson would have won either way. 2009, Jimmy Johnson would have won either way. 2012, Brad Keselowski. And 2013, Jimmy Johnson. However, the 5 years that didn't crown the full season champion, Kurt Busch in 2004, Jimmy Johnson in 2007, Jimmy Johnson in 2008, Jimmy Johnson in 2010, and Tony Stewart in 2011, the difference was, if you look at the full season points, for example, in 2004, Kurt Busch was, I think, 4th by the end of that season. Still top 5 in points. You could still make an argument, yeah, he deserved that championship. 2007, Jeff Gordon had an historic 30 top 10 season. 6 wins. Would have won the championship by a landslide. However, the next best driver that year, in reality, consistency-wise and wins-wise, was Jimmy Johnson. He was the second best, you can say. 2008, it would have been Carl Edwards. But again, Jimmy Johnson was like top 2, top 3, top 4 all year, points-wise, consistency-wise. 2010, again, I would say Harvick and Hamlin were the top 2. I think Harvick would have won that championship that year. Jimmy Johnson was 3rd. What I'm trying to say is, with the original rendition of the chase, yes, we did sometimes crown people who weren't the best across the entire season, but at least the ones who ended up winning weren't totally outlandish. Even take Tony Stewart's 2011 historic run. Like, he barely made the chase that year. But by the time the end of the regular season was done, like race 1 to race 36, with his 5 wins in the postseason, he would have been all the way up to like top 4 or 5 in points. I gotta look at that real quick. I'll do a little research. It can crown a somewhat legitimate champion, and the sample size being 10 full races is big enough. When you have this elimination style format, the biggest problem with it, there's been too many examples of a great season by several different drivers being completely tarnished by one singular bad race. I think of Kyle Busch in 2014 was going to easily walk his way into the round of 8. At Talladega, he gets involved in a singular crash that's not his fault. Misses it by like 1 or 2 points. 2015, Jimmy Johnson was a top 5 driver like all year, multiple wins, running up front. He did have a summer slump, but then easily would have made the round of 12. A parts failure took him out of it. 2017, Kyle Larson was the best driver for a majority of that season. Round of 12 again, a blown motor completely out of his control takes him out of it. Kyle Larson, 2022, was like top 4, top 5 in points by the end of that season. A bad race at the Charlotte Roval wipes his championship hopes. The problem with racing and playoffs, in any regard, is that any other sport that NASCAR tries to replicate the whole stick and ball aspect of having playoffs, Game 7 moments, baseball, basketball, hockey, football, all those sports, it is one team up against another team. The outcome is you either win, you either lose, or in some sports you can tie. When it comes to racing, it is one team versus 39 other teams, especially in NASCAR. Obviously, IndyCar has like 27 car fields. Formula One's going to have like 22 car fields, but still. You have a 1v1v1v1v1. So the whole win and lose mentality is completely different because you can win the race, but you have an incredibly high chance of losing. However, since points ranked on how high you finish in a race is still awarded, not winning the race can still be considered a great day. Finishing 3rd or 4th in the race is great points. It's not like stick and ball sports. You're not going to tie in racing. Somebody will be the winner. You're not going to have half the field win the race and half the field lose the race. It's one driver, one team wins every week. Everybody else are losers. But racing awards losing by how high up you finish in the running order. It's not like a baseball player. Like take Aaron Judge, for example. He's not going to, he may lose the game, but Aaron Judge is not going to get bonus points for being the best player on the Yankees that particular day. And when you have the extra concept of the man versus machine ideology, in which other sports don't have, you are trusting your race car to perform. Having that one random bad race that takes you out of the postseason just because some part fails or a tire blows, something out of the driver and team's control, it's just like a 1 in a million chance. That's not the driver's fault. He's getting punished for something out of his control. Having a 10-man chase, it gives teams mulligans over a large enough sample size, in my opinion, to have a bad race or two. 10 races, I think, is more than enough time to determine a champion. The top 10 in points reset. Those 10 drivers for the next 10 weeks duke it out. I do have some personal tweaks I will make. Again, the only reason why I'm saying a 10-man chase over a full season points format is because I never got to experience the chase era. Keep in mind, NASCAR's biggest year was 2005 in ratings with the chase. I don't think the original rendition was that bad or outlandish. I really do not think it was. I'm a huge fan of that because it would be a perfect balance of not having outlandish people make the playoffs and not having outlandish eliminations, people who should have won the championship not win it, people who shouldn't have won it. Before I mentioned from 2004 to 2013, the original rendition of the chase, it had about a 50% accuracy rate of crowning the legit champion from race 1 to race 36. From 2014 to 2025, 4 out of those 12 years crowned the legitimate champion. Best across the entire season. Those seasons being Truex in 2017, Kyle Busch in 2019, Kyle Larson in 2021, and Kyle Larson this year in 2025. Kyle Larson wins this year's championship, and it still feels undeserved because of how good Denny Hamlin did in that particular Phoenix race. Larson was the best across the board, and Hamlin did miss a race, but he was like the sentimental favorite, and he put on a clinic at Phoenix, did what he had to do, was finally going to beat the system. And then a late race yellow completely changes that. Racing is too unpredictable for any sort of elimination style bracket. Think of all the years and during the chase era 2014 was easily Jeff Gordon's. Kevin Harvick won. 2015, Kyle Busch missing a third of the season could be crowned champion. He would have been 20th in points, which is still incredible. The fact he missed a third of the season, still got a top 20 points finish. But it's like, really? 2016, Jimmy Johnson would have been 9th in points. Take Ryan Blaney in 2023, wasn't even close to top 5 in points. Maybe 6th or 7th. He had 8 top 5s that year. He's going to be a champion because he had 2 good races towards the end of the year. 2024, Joey Logano wasn't even going to be in the playoffs if it wasn't for Austin Cindric, his teammate, spinning out at Nashville. He was out of the points. That one win was the reason why he made it. And then he just played the system perfectly. He would have been like 11th. The original chase, at least the people in contention actually deserve to be there. And usually the outlandish like guys in the bottom half of the points most of the time will not win it. They could. And the reason why I don't like having such a big sample size in a 16-man chase, NASCAR's also been talking about doing like a 4-4 or a 3-3-4. First round's 3 races, second round's 3 races, the last round's 4. 4 races is still not a big enough sample size. You can have somebody who has 4 great weeks in a row versus somebody else who has 3 great weeks in a row with 1 bad finish due to something out of his control and still take him out of it. 10 races is still enough in my opinion. 10 races is big enough. A 4-race final round is not enough. I don't want any of this elimination style stuff anymore. Another reason why I don't like such a big sample size with any type of elimination is because having too many people make the chase just because they get that win and you're in, it completely disregards drivers who have consistently good seasons, 10th, 12th, 14th in points, but they can't get that one win. Racing, a win can fall in your lap. Consistency can't really fall on your lap, though. I think back to 2024. Think of all those goofy winners we had. Daniel Suarez, Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, all guys out of the top 16 in points. Weren't consistent at all. They have one generational race. They're in the playoffs, and what do you know? All 4 of those guys didn't put up any sort of fight versus guys like Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain that year, Bubba Wallace, who were all around the top 10 in points, maybe a little bit behind, somewhere like 8th or 9th. Take Truex in 2022. He would have finished the regular season at like 6th in points, but all those goofy winners kept pushing him back and back. And having so many playoff drivers and so much emphasis on like the elimination style bracket, the coverage only pays attention to said playoff drivers. 10-man chase, in my opinion, why I like it so much is because it gives more room for playoff spoilers. I love playoff spoilers. I would just like to see a 10-man chase in action. However, though, I will make some personal tweaks. I want to bring back all of those bonus points that the Winston Cup era had. I'm pretty sure the original rendition of the chase had it too. I don't know how many points I would give for like these accomplishments or like the finishing order. I'll get to that one day. I would do bonus points for leading a lap, leading the most laps, pole winner, fastest 4-tire pit stop, fastest 2-tire pit stop, and fastest pit stop with gas only. Fastest lap in the race. We added that back this year. Most positions gained from starting spot, I think would be a good way to award some bonus points. And lastly, hear me out. I don't know how this sounds to some people. I know people are a little bit lopsided when it comes to stage racing. Stages remain. However, the caution's got to go. I like the aspect of having points awarded in the early and middle portions of a race. Because, again, racing is so unpredictable and things out of the driver and team's control can completely derail their day. Prime example, Kyle Busch used to sweep both stages at the 2017 Brickyard 400, fastest car. Gets wiped out in an accident that wasn't really his fault. He still had a lot of points. After having a dominant day, he deserves to get some credit for something out of his control, taking him out of a great race. But again, no caution. At the very least, on super speedway races and road courses, they took the stages away from the road courses for a while. But then again, people started complaining that the races got boring and stretched out. That's what road course racing is. That Indy road course race a couple years ago was awesome. Having that one caution on lap 2 and like 2.5 hours straight of just green flag hard racing. I love that. And I'm also considering possibly, just possibly, one wild card spot. Kind of how it used to work. Like the 2 drivers outside the top 10 in points with the most wins would get the final 2 wild card spots. I think there should be one wild card spot. Just one. Driver with the most wins outside the top 10 in points. If 2 drivers are tied in wins outside the top 10 in points, say like 2 drivers outside the top 10 by race 26 have like 2 wins apiece. Whoever's higher in points out of those 2 people makes the 11th and final spot. And stage points, winning races will still give you bonus points like they do now with the playoff points. Stage wins will as well. And then you know how based on how many wins you had going into the chase, the original rendition, you would have some bonus points. All those stage points you've accumulated over the first 26 races will add up to start your chase if you're in the top 10 in points or the 11th wild card. We see a lot of drivers who don't make the playoffs. They'll win stages and get playoff points, but they're never utilized because they don't make the playoffs. And then also what they do today, like you have the regular season champion, and based on how your regular season points are by the end of the regular season, you get extra bonus points. I want to bring that back too. Like if you're first place, you get 15 bonus playoff points. Second place, you get 12. Third, you get 10, etc. And then as the playoffs go on, they'll still hand out, like, they'll be treated as like just bonus points. I really hope that NASCAR does not go with the 3-3-4. I don't want to see any more elimination style bracket. I'm done with that. As a diehard Jeff Gordon fan, the playoffs and the chase have killed Jeff Gordon from being a 7-time champion. However, the most heartbreaking one was the one with the elimination style bracket. The other 2, okay, you could argue Kurt Busch has put on a better 10 races than Jeff Gordon. Big enough sample size that I can't get too mad. Like, Gordon had 10 races to lock in. 2007, Gordon had 10 races to lock in. And Johnson won 4 in a row. He clutched up. There's not really clutching up with an elimination style bracket. It's more just like things have to 100% go your way. Because consistency still doesn't really matter. Back to Jimmy Johnson. In 2016, a very poor year for his standards. Very poor year for his standards. He wins the race in the round of 12 at Charlotte, does nothing the next 2 weeks. Wins the first race at Martinsville in the round of 8, does nothing the next 2 weeks. Worst car at Homestead, things fall in his lap, he's the champion. The 10-man chase, ideally, would be very good. Biggest issue with the sport, it treats itself too much like the WWE in the sense that they want all these crazy Game 7 moments. And this format that we have now forces drivers to do stupid things, wreck each other, make daring moves that just don't showcase good driving. It just showcases being desperate. Kevin Harvick 2020 is a prime example of that. Had to dump Kyle Busch, then wrecked himself for that 1 extra point after having the best season of his life because of the playoffs. He had 1 bad race at Texas, and then Martinsville didn't go his way. And also, this 10-man chase would eliminate the win and you're in, which is why I'm a big fan of that. I hate the win and you're in. And I hope we do get the 10-man chase back. It's legitimate enough for me to consider it a good points format. It's not perfect. It's not the best option. But it would be a perfect combination of a little bit of like that playoff hype while still maintaining good legitimacy, as everyone who would make a 10-man chase deserves to be there. And you still have to prioritize consistency to some extent. You can't just get that one win to make the playoffs. You have to be consistently good to earn your spot. A win's not going to cut it anymore. You got to be good every single week. Every position matters. Anyway, guys, that about wraps it up for this video. What points format do you think NASCAR will go with? With some tweaks, I think it would be really good. But just please no 334. Please no 334. I hope you guys have a great holiday. This is May in Motorsports. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And yeah, I'm still like learning how to close these things out. But have a good day, guys. Peace.